stand out from the crowd, to communicate what we stand for, what makes us unique. We reminded ourselves of who we are. We are AB InBev. Dreaming big is in our DNA. Brewing the world's most loved beers, building iconic brands, and creating meaningful experiences is what inspires us. Our people are curious, bold, and resilient. We're ambitious. We see challenges as opportunities, push boundaries, and thrive under pressure. We are owners building a company to last, empowered to lead real change, deliver results, and grow at the pace of our talent. We work hard, and we win together. This is what Challenge Accepted means to us, and we're proud to bring it to life across our markets globally. AB InBev. Challenge Accepted.
From neighboring BI Norwegian Business School here in Oslo, Norway. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the kickoff of the EFMD Global Fair by Hired. My name is Amber Wigmore-Alvarez, Chief Talent Officer of Hired, and it is my pleasure to be your host for the event this week. Before sharing the exciting details of the week, allow me to introduce you to a few key members of the team. On behalf of our partner, EFMD, we have with us today Jean-Alexis Spitz, also known as Jazz, Bernd Blankholm, founder and COO of Hired, and Rahua Mogos, who is one of our student ambassadors from neighboring BI Norwegian Business School here in Oslo, Norway, where the Hired headquarters is located. Over to you, Jazz. Also known as Jazz, Bernd Blankholm, founder and COO of Hired, and Rahua Mogos, who is one of our student ambassadors from neighboring BI Norwegian Business School here in Oslo, Norway, where the Hired headquarters is located.
Thank you, Amber. It's my greatest honor to welcome you all, talent, recruiters, and career services on behalf of EFMD. Can you hear me? The EFMD Virtual Fair by Hired is very dear to EFMD. Thank you, Amber. As it's very well aligned. To welcome you. I'm sorry, but I have a terrible echo. I hear myself. Recruiters and career services on behalf of EFMD. Can you hear me? The EFMD virtual fair, there are three of me, is very dear to EFMD. Thank you, Amber. As it's very well aligned. I'm sorry, but I have a terrible echo. I hear myself. Recruiters and career services of EFMD. Can you hear me? Virtual.
We seem to be having some technical difficulties in connecting with Jazz. We'll come back to him in just a moment. In the meantime, let me introduce you to Bernd Blangholm, our founder and COO. Bernd.
Hi, everyone. Technical problems do occur sometimes, but thank you, Amber, for the kind introduction. And thank you for guiding us through this week of virtual meets between recruiters and talent. EFMD Hired organizing the largest virtual career fair to date. During the next 5 days, we will have close to 10,000 students, graduates, and alumni meeting with over 80 international companies with hundreds of recruiters joining live throughout the week. This is amazing. First Hired is all about presenting great opportunities to talent and providing resources to become even more employable. So stay tuned today to hear all about the newest feature we are launching together with Coursera. Coursera is the #1 provider of online courses and certifications globally. So with that, I want to wish you all a great week. Don't be shy. Reach out to the recruiters, introduce yourself, apply to opportunities, and attend as many talks as you possibly can. Put a lot of eggs in your basket. The more you train, the better you get. So good luck to everyone. And with that, back to Amber.
Thank you very much, Bernd. Excellent. So Rawa, we're going to bring over now one of our student ambassadors, Rawa. We're seeing more students like you getting actively involved in careers initiatives and being proactive about taking control of your career. Tell us what brought you to join the Hired Student Ambassador Program and share a challenge for the rest of the talent out there.
Yes, thank you, Amber. Hi, everyone, students from all around the world. My name is Rahuatek Emagos. I'm 20 years old and live in Oslo, Norway. Today, I'm studying business management at BI Norwegian Business School, and I am the student ambassador at Hired to represent my school, which is therefore I've been given the opportunity to talk to you guys about the SA program and what it is all about. The SA program is the Student Ambassador Program, where our mission is to inspire and motivate students. We also want to provide you digital tools, which will be a very real impact on recruitment for talent, as well as for schools and employers. We also aim to connect student communities through the Student Ambassador Program with the mission of spreading the word about Hired to fellow classmates, alumni, faculty, and staff of their institution. For you, the talent, we have created the 15-second challenge for this week. You have 15 seconds to give us a creative pitch, which, for example, could include who you are, what you are doing, and also pick between these 3 topics: diversity, inclusion, or employability, and tell us which of these 3 are the most important to you and why. Also, don't forget to post it on Instagram as either Instagram story or a post, and tag us Get Hired and with your school as well. So here's an example that I've created myself. Let's see. So can you see it? Yeah. So like this. Yes. So this is how I created. I just created with the Instagram filter, and also I've introduced myself, which school I go to, and chose one of those 3 topics and tagged Get Hired and my school as well. Yes.
It includes our backgrounds and
Hello, I am Rahula. I study at PI. And for me, diversity is the most important because it includes our backgrounds and gives us a different view of the world.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rahula. Fantastic having you.
Thank you.
And we're so fortunate. So now I'm looking forward to seeing the 15-second challenges from the rest of the talent out there. We will be announcing winners who will receive a special gift from one of our sponsors, AB InBev, as well as complimentary access to Coursera. Now, in addition to the exciting challenge, we have a lot more going on. We have daily conferences streaming live each day this week from Monday to Friday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. CEST on Get Hired on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We'll be hearing from top speakers from Coursera, Mondelez International, L'Oreal Group, AB InBev, and the International Finance Corporation, IFC. And not only does today mark the start of the global fair, but we're also very excited to announce the launch of the Coursera by Hired EFMD initiative, from which our talent will be able to benefit greatly. We listened to you, the talent, and we heard overwhelmingly positive interest in career development, training, and certifications that are tailored to employers' requirements for key roles and also based on your own personal skill levels. Today, we will have with us Dr. Samar Farah from Coursera, who'll be sharing with us the top 10 in-demand skills in 2025 and what employers are focusing more on. Is it the skills? Is it the degrees? How can you prepare for your next career move and career step? Stay tuned to learn how to reverse engineer that job that you want and fill in the gaps in your core digital skills. And later today, after we hear from Dr. Farah from Coursera, we will be holding our first CV clinic of the week, which will be from 4 to 5 p.m. CEST today. I will be co-hosting with Maria Moragianis from Alba Graduate Business School in Greece. And in addition, I'll be co-hosting throughout the week, each day, these CV clinics with leading career services professionals from business schools in Europe and the Middle East. So stay tuned to the program and be a part of the action. And remember, the main focus of the week is really to connect with the hundreds of recruiters who will be live in one-to-one written or video chats. If you haven't yet uploaded your CV in your school's gethired.global platform in your profile, be sure to do that because our recruiters are already accessing a CV book that we're sharing with selected recruiters, and you will see how recruiters will be able to request access to view your CV during the fair as you engage with them. Now, a very special thank you to our sponsors, without whom this event would not have been possible. AB InBev, the world's largest brewer and our recurring sponsor. BBVA, one of the largest financial institutions in the world. And GEP, the leading global provider of strategy, software, and outsourcing solutions to procurement and supply chain organizations. And now for our digital conference, we have with us Dr. Samar Farah. Dr. Farah is a skills transformation consultant at Coursera and an online learning expert. In her role, she examines the changing skills requirements of business and advises universities and today talent on potential ways in which you can use Coursera for Campus to enhance job readiness for students. And prior to Coursera, she spent over 10 years working in education research and programming in the philanthropy and non-government sectors. Samar holds a doctorate in international education development from Columbia University. Personally, I'm looking forward to hearing more about the top in-demand skills for the coming years and how talent can fill in the gaps in your core digital skills. It is meant to be interactive, so I encourage you all to keep the questions coming in the chat, and I will be fielding those questions to Dr. Farah throughout her sessions. Now, we will, of course, be active on social media throughout the week, so please follow us at the links you see on the screen, including Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
Samar, warm welcome to you. Great to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm so pleased to be here, to be speaking to so many young people that we always talk about in the work that we do, but don't always get a chance to engage directly. So very excited to be here.
Over to you.
Perfect. Let me just make sure that you can see my screen. Okay, I hope you're able to see my screen.
Not yet.
Okay. Just give me one moment. It seems, apologies, because it says that it's sharing, but for some reason, there we go.
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. So lovely to be here. And as Amber shared, please feel free to ask questions in the chat throughout the conversation. So my role at Coursera is a skills transformation consultant. And what I do is work closely with educational institutions to advise them around, what are the skills that talent need these days based on data that we have on our platform around the jobs and the roles that are coming up in greatest demand and the kinds of skills that people need to be employable. And so let's talk a little bit about yourselves. The agenda for today's session is we'll start by talking high level. What is happening in the job market? What are the kinds of skills that are coming up that are going to be needed in the next 5 to 10 years? Then we'll talk a little bit about why is it important to talk and think about skills, as you think about your next career step. And once we do that, what are some concrete things that you can do to start preparing for your next career move? And how can online learning in particular help you in moving in that direction? And finally, we'll take some time to do questions and answers. But if there's anything that is unclear, or Amber, if you'd like me to address any questions as we go along, please let me know. So there's a number of trends that we're seeing that are coming up in the next 10 years when it comes to jobs. The first trend is that everyone is going to need to be a lot more educated and have higher qualifications than ever before in the past. The second is that the largest proportion of jobs that we're seeing come up by 2030 don't even exist yet. And that's because, the technology is moving so quickly that it just, they're going to be created in the next few years. So the question around that is, what are the skills that you need to prepare for those future jobs, and how can you build up a skill set that will make you as versatile and employable as possible so that you're prepared for that kind of a future. And one of the things that we've seen in particular since COVID is that, the past year and a half has accelerated a number of trends that we've been seeing anyway before when it comes to digital transformation and the rise of digital jobs. And what you see in the graph on the left-hand side is that the largest proportion of jobs are going to be coming up by 2025 are in a number of core spaces around cybersecurity, data analysis and artificial intelligence, around cloud computing and software development. And unlike in the past, where these were the kinds of roles that would be required in an IT sector or IT environment, these are the kinds of jobs that are now seeping into the traditional sectors, including agriculture, healthcare, education, and tourism. And they are the kind of skills that everyone is going to need to have some proficiency around when we're thinking about, being employable and versatile in the future. So the other thing that we, some of the research that we have done at Coursera that contributed to a World Economic Forum report recently was around, looking at the data that we have from, over 87 million learners on our platform and understanding what are the types of skills that they're developing and what are the kinds of jobs that they're thinking about and roles that they're applying for. And that helped to pull together a set of 99 different jobs that are in greatest demand that were then grouped into 10 professional clusters that you see in the table on the left-hand side. And so these are those large clusters of job roles that are growing significantly and that require a core set of digital skills for. And on the right-hand side, you're seeing the top 5 jobs that are in greatest demand that very much align with
We seem to be having a technical issue with Samar. We'll get her right back. In the meantime, allow me to remind you, any questions that you have for Dr. Farah, please be sure to share there in the chat. And I'm going to be asking very specific questions to her about how we can get the resources and how you can reverse engineer the job that you're looking for. So hopefully we'll be able to bring her right back in.
Seems like the stream stopped. It's going on. Is it?
Around their views on the most valuable skills for employees.
Okay. We lost you for a minute, Samar. Carry on.
Okay. So what we're seeing from that research is that including some of the digital skills that are focused around managing change, digital transformation, data analytics, as well as artificial intelligence, you also need those soft skills associated with managing, in this kind of an uncertain environment. So things related to decision making in those times, innovating in those spaces, as well as driving decisions using data, and other kind of soft skills are associated. So it's this combination of digital skills as well as the soft skills that are really, that we're getting consistent feedback that are becoming really crucial for young people to have. So why does all this matter? Why is everyone talking about skills these days, and why should you care? I think that's an important thing to try and understand. One of the things that we're seeing, and we've seen a shift over the last few years, is that in industry, there is a transition towards what we call a skills-first approach particularly around hiring of new employees. And what that means is that the focus is becoming a little bit more on skills. And in some companies in particular, they're focusing less on degrees. Part of that is around becoming more accessible and diverse in terms of the type of employees you attract. But it's also out of a recognition that a concrete focus around skills and developing those can really help prepare someone for a job in a way that degrees obviously provide a huge amount of value in and of themselves, the branding, that experience, and the knowledge that one gains. But there is also a space around skills that is really important and is becoming playing a bigger role when it comes to hiring. And so some of the stats that you see here are based on surveys that were done with employers and HR professionals. So 62% are considering skills-first hiring as a priority and deprioritizing degrees, whereas 90% would hire candidates who have validated their knowledge using a certificate or a digital badge or coursework. So, as long as there is some form of credential around the skills that someone is developing, that is, increasingly valued when looking for a job. And that is something that we at Coursera have been focusing on a lot. We have developed our skills taxonomy, which essentially is, a culmination of work that we've done, since our launch, where we have our data science team.
Can I just stop you for just a moment? And I have a question about what you were talking about and how employers are actually focusing more now on the skills versus the degrees. And of course, that's a very controversial message, and we represent a business school network. And so many of my students, are, especially undergraduates, are asking about like the next steps. Should I actually work, or is this the time to do a specialized master's program or an MBA? So to all of those undergraduates out there and the talent that are considering that next career move, what are your recommendations for them based on what you just shared in terms of the skills taking on more importance for employers than the actual degree?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think nothing can take away the value of a degree. I think we have to be honest about that. But I think there is a huge value in the complement that is provided by skills development. And depending on the types of experiences or the institutions that someone is attending, there are certain skills that may not be provided by certain academic institutions. And we see that from our conversations and interactions with institutions that draw on Coursera for, to complement their academic programs. And I think that's where every individual, every learner needs to think about, what are the skills that I need, to prepare for the career that I want in the future, and what is going to help me to get there. There's nothing that compares to a face-to-face MBA experience, and not that I have experienced it, but I know a lot of people who have, and I know what is the outcome of that. But there are also a certain set of skills that are very easily taught online, and that complement very well that experience in university. So I think it is an individualized decision. Depends on someone's background, where they want to go, and so it's very difficult to provide a very concrete recommendation. But I think it is important to keep an open mind and to really understand what one's options are, and decide accordingly.
Thank you, Ella. And I was curious about that taxonomy, and there's some great terminology on there, and so many of our talent are always looking to better focus their career portfolio documentation, if you will, like, for example, the CV, the cover letter, those LinkedIn summaries. So let's continue, and I want them to pay attention, especially here when they're looking to get that focus and position themselves as strong in certain technical or functional skills that they might have, and of course always complemented with the relationships that they're making in the industry to achieve any career change. So go right ahead.
Perfect. Yes, and I think the difficulty around skills is that there are so many different terms are used for for different skills that we develop, and there's no global taxonomy, and I think that's where it becomes quite tricky. Now, what we're doing, because we have such a huge learner base, we really have a lot of data that we can draw on to become quite rigorous in the kind of skills that we track and that we map to the content that we have. So it is a very kind of complicated process, but one that we've been working on a long time. And so this can be really valuable in terms of thinking about how you position yourself to an employer, beyond just saying, oh, I've got a degree in this. It is very important to speak their language. And so if I'll share a little bit more about some examples of concrete things that you can do as talent when you're thinking about applying for jobs. So the other thing that I think is important, just to come back to the trends that we've been seeing, is by far some of the what we call domains, which is the kind of the umbrella term for skills. By far the three domains that we've seen greatest interest and growth in are in the business, technology, and the data domains. And that very much aligns with the digital skills that are growing. And what you see here is the top trending skills in this year across these three domains. So this is what people are coming to Coursera to see, and that is obviously changing very, very rapidly. So that can be quite useful to think about. What are professionals doing? What are some of the things that I should be thinking about in the future, especially if I want to develop some of these skills from scratch.
Now, Samar, I'm curious, because you're talking here about the tracking of the trends.
Yes.
And in terms of the tracking the skills of your learners on your platforms, how are you doing that? How are you tracking the skills of your learners? I'm curious to see how that will cross-check with the tracking of the latest trends.
Yes, that's a very good question. So essentially, the trends that you're seeing are the skills that are in greatest demand, or the ones that people are pursuing the most. The way we do that is we do tag our courses. So if someone's taking a course on AI, we tag that to a set of skills that are associated with with what you develop, I guess, by completing that course. So it can be anything from data analysis, machine learning, and others. And as a learner enrolls and completes assessments in that course, we do know with every assessment, a set of, we associate it with a set of, I guess, scores that someone develops in a specific skill. And so we are able to track proficiency, not just, in completing an assessment saying, oh, someone got 80%. We're actually able to do that across the 4, for example, different skills that someone's developing. And we have 4 different categories or proficiency levels, starting from conversant to beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So we're really able to track not just completion and the grade, but how someone's doing and how they're progressing across these different skills. And therefore that we feed into the trends around the skills that people are developing, because we're able to see what kinds of courses are people taking and what skills within these courses they're developing, and which ones are in greatest interest and demand. So that's really how we do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. So based on what we've just discussed, we're also able to compare how learners are doing on our platform across different groups. So at Coursera, we support individuals who come to our platform and choose to develop their skills on their own. We also work on an institutional level with businesses, with governments, with universities, and what we can do is do comparisons of what is the skill level and what are the skills gaps of learners in university versus people who are in the field, who are professionals in that space. And so we've recently done such a mapping, and you can see the source at the bottom. It's called Coursera Unbounded University ebook. So you're able to access it. And what we've seen is with business students, 2 general trends. First of all, among all students in university, business students are some of the most qualified compared to professionals in their field. And I have to say that's not surprising. I suspect that all of you would have expected to see that. But in the area where they have gaps, that's typically in kind of the technology space. So that's around software engineering, general programming skills, data visualization, and so on. So that is really one gap that we're seeing, and I can probably attest to that based on my conversations with different business schools that we speak to. So I think that's just something that is worth keeping in mind, especially if someone's thinking about, wanting to pursue that direction, but really, technology skills, general programming skills are really going to be, required for a lot of people in the future. And finally, on the skills perspective, one other thing that I wanted to share with you is what are professionals? We just talked about the gap between learners in university and professionals, but what are the professionals who are in the business space that are coming to Coursera to get trained, by their companies? What are some of the key skills that they are trying to gain? And what we're seeing in this list of top 10 courses is things around the emerging technologies, things like artificial intelligence. Software development is the top one, which very much reflects, what we just saw, the fact that, people in the business space are trying to learn software development, as well as, other things related to cloud computing, data science, more general business skills, but also communication skills. And you'll see that, writing professional emails, communication strategies, learning how to learn. All of these skills are really, really crucial to be successful. And it's not just things that you learn in university. It's things that you need to continue developing throughout your professional career. So I just thought that might be interesting to help, make it a little bit more concrete about what we're really seeing people learning. Now, let's talk in more practical terms about, what you can do as talent when you think about your next career step. So the best way to think about it is, if you have a specific goal in mind, a specific job or a specific role that you're aiming towards, the best way to do it is to reverse engineer it, to really think about, where you want to get to, how do you get there, and work your way backwards. So what I'd like to do is just give you one example of how you could do that if you have something concrete in mind. Now, if you don't, there are many other ways to do it. Yeah, and I can share a little bit about that towards the end of the presentation. So here's just an example of a job description based on a real job description for an enterprise strategy consultant. it is kind of framed in a skills first approach, and so you'll see the focus is very much around skills, on the kinds of skill sets that are needed for the role. And so the role involves, advising people on digital transformation, using analytical, human-centered design approaches, and obviously having a good understanding of emerging technologies and how that links up to some of these, how to provide recommendations around innovations related to emerging technologies. And so, let's think about, looking at that job description, what are some of the skills that one would need for that job, and then how can one of you, for example, if you're interested in that kind of a role, how could you put together a pathway for you to develop the skills that you would need for that job? So first of all, let's look at emerging technologies. That's a core tech skill that would be required for someone who's applying for this. If that's something you haven't, you don't have a background in, or you haven't studied in university, then that's something that you would want to invest in. The second one is around the human skills. We call them human, soft. There's many terms around it. There's everything from critical thinking, creativity, communication, negotiation, time management, collaboration. There's a lot in there. Obviously, a lot of those you've already developed, throughout university. If you've worked, that's also helping. So you'll want to, think it, maybe reflect on your strengths, on your weaknesses, and maybe think about which are the ones that are highest priority or ones that you would want to develop further. Around data, there's an emphasis on using data and evidence to inform some of the recommendations that you would be doing in this kind of a role. So obviously you'd want to have a good grounding in math and statistics, data analysis, data science. Potentially, there's a huge drive towards making using data to make all kinds of decisions within businesses. So having that would be a real competitive advantage. And then finally, around business skills, and obviously you're all business students, so I suspect that a lot of these skills you're developing in your courses at university, but let's just highlight those. So digital transformation, human-centered design, innovation, entrepreneurship, these are some of those core skills that one would need. And so what do you do with this, right? That's a lot of skills that you need to develop. And I think the great way to think about it is, content online is now becoming very accessible and very kind of modularized. So it's very easy to pick and choose, courses or other types of content that you can stack on top of each other, and that would form a really great cohesive pathway that would be customized and personalized to you. So just to share with you a little bit about the kinds of content we have on Coursera, we have something, we have projects, we call them guided projects, are really short form content, very practical tools around how to use specific software to really apply theoretical learning in a more hands-on experience. So, learning how to use Excel for something, even when we're talking about CV writing, learning how to use LinkedIn, to improve your network and position yourself. So there's some really practical projects that we have. There's obviously the courses are the most popular form of content, but we also have slightly longer form content that are kind of credentials that support mastery of certain skills offered by universities and our industry partners. So when you think about these different types of content, there are different ways to use it depending on how much you need to develop certain skills. If you don't have a background in technology, well, maybe you want to do a specialization or a certificate that would really help you delve more deeply into that. In other forms of content or other skills, you may not need as much training. So, for this individual that's now an aspiring enterprise strategy consultant, what is that skills development pathway that they need to take based on the job description that we saw? So when it comes to business skills, here's just a few examples of what they could, do on Coursera. They can take a course around innovation and emerging technology, how to be disruptive. So, learning how to use those technologies and innovating in a business environment. There's also a number of projects, guided projects that I just mentioned, that can be really helpful in developing those, data visualization or business tools that would be useful in the day-to-day work and engagements with clients. Secondly, around technology, here I proposed, for example, specialization, which is a set of 4 courses on the key digital emerging technologies that we're seeing. Everything from Internet of Things, big data, blockchain, and a few others are covered in this specialization that can be a great in-depth view of what is happening and what can be useful in a role like that. And next, around the human skills. So obviously there was a lot on that list. So one would need to think about what are the key things that that you particularly need to develop and think would add value in. But here's some examples around high performance collaboration. There's a lot of different themes that are covered in this course around leadership, teamwork, and negotiation. There's another one around critical thinking for the information age that's really focused on, the digital environment. And finally, one around transmedia storytelling. That is kind of a new theme that's coming up a lot in terms of knowing how to communicate, knowing how to tell a story, but also in an environment where you're using emerging technologies. And finally, around data, there's a few course recommendations related to business metrics for data-driven companies. So really bringing those two together. And in this case, a professional certificate around Google Data Analytics. So this is, once again, longer form content for those of you that perhaps, don't have a data background, but are interested in, and want to explore that. So this is just one example.
Fantastic. I have a number of questions for you,
of course,
from the audience. So first of all, resources that would be useful for our talent across different countries who have interest in specific industries. So let's keep in mind that so many of our students and alumni out there, when they choose to pursue a degree or a master's program, it's because they're looking to achieve a career change of one form or another. So interest in specific industries, what kind of resources, and especially considering that our talent pool, our hired community is so diverse and located all over the world. We have schools in 92 countries, 700 different schools. So any suggestions for resources that you would recommend?
Yes. That's really important. So we have 2 resources that I would highly recommend that actually have just been published in the last few months. The first is the Global Skills Report, which is a report that kind of tracks what learners across the globe in over 100 countries are learning, what are the kinds of skills they have, particularly with a focus on business, tech, and data, because really that is where the world is going. So that really allows someone to, get a global, regional view, but also see, what people on Coursera are learning and what is the level of skills in particular countries. It also has some really great content around what are some of these emerging pathways for roles and how professional certificates that we're seeing from industry can really be a great asset when trying to make that transition for careers. The second one is our Industry Skills Report, which was literally published a few weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. And that really delves, specifically into specific industries. So it looks at, the core industries that we're seeing in the world today that I'm sure a lot of you will be trying to enter. And it gives you an idea of what are the skills of professionals in that industry, where things are going, and where are the gaps. So that once again can be a great tool to think about how you fit in that, what are your gaps and how do they align with those of the industry. So I would highly recommend those 2 reports, but obviously, there's I mentioned the Unbounded Universities ebook, which might be helpful as well. So I think that could be a great start.
So the Global Skills Report, the Industry Skills Report, and how exactly should they go about accessing these?
Yes, good question. So they're all available on our website. I think if they just Google them, it's very easy to access. They're available for free if they just enter their email address. So that should be no issues for them to access.
Excellent. Now, in terms of the trends that you are seeing amongst the business schools that you're working with, that work with Coursera, what kind of content are they looking for? Where are you developing? In what areas?
Mm-hmm. So maybe let's talk first about the business schools in particular. We are seeing, we're having a lot of conversations with business schools, and I'd say the main trend that we're seeing is that every business school, is an expert in their field. They're great at offering business skills. Obviously, some have broader expertise as well. But what we see most business schools asking for are those cutting edge skills that perhaps may be a little bit outside of what they have expertise in, but they recognize are a huge complement to what they offer in terms of core curriculum. So they're looking for those skills that really change very, very quickly. It takes time and resources to invest that kind of content, but really can make their young people so much more employable when they're thinking about the next step. So I would say that's the first one and the biggest one. The other two, the first one is thinking about some of the prerequisites that young people need when they're transitioning into especially into MBA programs. Students that come into MBA programs have very varied and different backgrounds, and so some of them need a bit of leveling up in order to get to that kind of that same level, especially when it comes to background in finance and accounting, math, statistics. So that's just something that we're seeing a lot of business schools interested. And the final one is around executive education, so supporting offering content and training to professionals in the workplace.
Fantastic. So on the one hand, you have the business schools that are requesting this to level up incoming students. And how about the talent themselves that would like to pursue a specific master's, but perhaps it's a few steps away and they're lacking certain skills? Do you also see it useful for that, for individual talent who proactively on their own, without being necessarily through their school, could level up on certain skills to become to fulfill the prerequisites, for example, to doing a certain degree program?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's no question that that's really how, the vast majority of individuals, especially students, are using the platform. So we really see a huge, I think learners, especially after COVID, have recognized that, you have to be proactive about these things. And there is access to a lot of great resources online, including on Coursera. So the extent to which they can take that initiative to position themselves, to identify the areas where they have gaps and prepare for their next step, whether it's an academic, transition or transitioning into their careers, that is very much something that is valuable, and that those certificates do add value. The quality of the content is very rigorous. Upon completion of courses, you get a certificate, and you really are well positioned in terms of understanding those topics really well.
Fantastic. And I see now that your colleagues have included the skills report and the index here in the chat, so you have direct access. About business schools, just with EFMD being a business school network, but can you also share, because we do have students across different faculties that might be outside of business schools, what kind of institutions use Coursera, and also maybe a word about the enterprises and the companies using Coursera for their employees?
Yes, of course. So obviously business schools are some of the schools we engage with, but we do really speak to institutions across the board globally, of course. So, we work with thousands of universities, a lot of, large public universities that have all the potential faculties that you would have. We see a huge interest among engineering schools, but also among some of the liberal arts schools too, because they too recognize that those digital skills are crucial, and that is a little bit outside of what they particularly may have expertise in. And so bringing in faculty just to teach some of those courses doesn't always make sense. And really the quality of the content is great and can add a huge value when complemented with what these universities have. So for all students, I think, the general trend we're seeing at Coursera is employability is the key theme. Everyone wants to think about, how do I position myself in a way that I'm more competitive with those to those around me, and what are the the additional skills that I need. And to be honest, regardless of whether you're a sociology student like I was, or an engineering student or a business student, in some ways, some of these, these digital skills are the same for everyone, soft skills too. So I think everything that I'm sharing is very much relevant across the board, and those are the kinds of conversations we have. And when it comes to the kinds of organizations that or businesses that we work with, they really, once again, cut across the board. So we've got, I think, 2,500 or 2,700 businesses globally that we support in learning and development programs. Some of the key themes align very much with what I've shared: tech skills, data skills, finance, leadership, marketing. I would say those are the 5 core areas that we're investing in, that we're seeing the greatest interest in from businesses, but also from governments, and that's something else that we do.
Fantastic. Now, you talk about how it can give talent an edge, and these certificates, and I especially am seeing the importance of that more than ever. I guess from COVID-19 times, what we're seeing in many markets is a surplus of talent and fierce competition. On average, we've always talked about 250 applicants for every business school type selection process, on average, of which 9 or 10 are equally as qualified as you, if not more qualified. So how do you get that edge, and how do you differentiate yourself from the rest? And I'm just starting to see it recently in our hired master classes and the students that we have attending, and how increasingly Coursera is part of the conversation, and how, in fact, they get quite competitive about it. They have licenses for certain periods or terms, and to see how many different certifications they're doing and just how they're including it on their LinkedIn profiles. Now, I'm a huge champion and supporter of LinkedIn in those markets in which it's legal. I'm conscious of the fact that it's not legal in all of the markets where we have a presence, but where it is, we say, if you're not on LinkedIn, you don't exist. And the importance that the employers are giving to these digital certificates. Do you want to talk a bit about just how much relevance and the significance of these digital certificates? And yes, it's the degrees from their leading EFMD institutions, of course, where they're studying, but increasingly the employers, what I'm seeing, and I'm eager to hear your feedback, is that they very much appreciate and see the value in these credentials, the digital certifications that the students are getting on Coursera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I would say the largest companies in the world, a lot of them are training their own employees on Coursera. So that means that they obviously recognize and value that the certifications that learners get on our platform. In fact, a lot of the businesses, the employers like Google, IBM, and others, a lot of them do train their own employees, for specific job roles on Coursera. So I think from that perspective, that shift is happening, and I think there's no more question around whether something like this would be valued. It's just a question of how much a certain employer would value it over others. I also think that when you combine the certificates that students can collect with the practical hands-on skills that they would get from the guided projects, because that is something else that we really hear consistently that is, that is lacking, among graduates of universities, that they understand the theory, they understand the concepts, but they're not always able to apply it. And when they're able to access those opportunities through things like our guided projects, and they're able to learn how to use, a programming language to do specific, tasks that they can then illustrate to potential employers, or they know how to use different tools around data visualization or, data analysis that they would use for data science work. That is something very concrete that can differentiate them from others, you still aren't seeing a lot of universities invest in, or that it's a significant resource for institutions to do that, especially at scale. So that is something that I think can really complement what the image of a graduate when they're looking for jobs.
we also have a lot of talent that when they have to do an assessment center as part of a selection process, they will, of course, use our practice Aon assessments, or at times will look for the specific assessment that will be part of their process. What are your thoughts on the talent taking the courses that are provided by your enterprise or your company partners that have delivered that content on Coursera when striving to work for that specific company? We have so many students, and we're always talking about having your 10 to 15 priority companies and organizations in mind. Thoughts on giving yourself that edge by taking those employer-specific provided courses as you're hoping to secure an opportunity in those organizations?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I obviously can't speak for those organizations, but I think there's no question that that enrolling in some of these industry certificates can add value. The industry certificates are particularly rigorous because they have to not only kind of develop the theoretical content and understanding and skills, but also they have a strong practical component, that hands-on learning component. So I'd say, it is some of our most popular content on our platform, and one where we see really positive career outcomes, whether it's with those companies or with others. It does send a strong signal if you take, a Google Analytics, certificate, and then apply for jobs related to data analytics, in any of the leading companies, because ultimately these are the leaders in that space. So I would say that is one of our most popular forms of content at the moment, and that has, very strong career outcomes.
Absolutely. And if we think about applicant tracking systems, the famous ATS, and the resume scans that these employers are using, and the fact that certain applicant tracking systems are very much based on having a specific number of relevant keywords. Mm-hmm. So just being able to get those company names or those specific skills onto the CV can really get you past that applicant tracking system scan. That, at least that's the way I'm seeing it, and we'll be looking at this more in our CV clinics taking place throughout the week. But also the fact that having top brand names and company names on a CV is also a career deal maker in so many cases. And so, especially for the talent out there that maybe they're lacking significant employment experience, they've had a selection of internships and they're just really getting started on their career, I can't think of a better way to be able to get those company names, not only just the names, but actually the training and the knowledge and those skill sets onto one CV than through initiatives like Coursera. But many questions have been coming in, but I will let you carry on. And in the meantime, once again, any questions you might have, feel free to share in the chat with us, and I will be sure to continue asking Dr. Farah.
Thank you so much. I think just one last point that I would say, in addition to, the value and skills and certificates, I also think it's important in terms of confidence building, and that's a very important piece for people that are graduating, especially if they don't have a lot of work experience. When you put something like that on your CV and you have really developed those skills, you have much greater confidence when going into an interview. If you've got a specific case study that you've got to do and as part of that application process. So I think we can't discount the importance of that as well, that is developed as part of that experience. I really just have one final slide, and that is, other ways in which, you can all benefit from online learning. So obviously, when you're thinking particularly about your employment, what I've just shared around working your way backwards from a potential job that you have in mind is one great way to think about it. But there's also, other ways to complement your current studies, or for those of you that might be working on the side, just, upgrading or developing some of those skills that might be useful in your current experience, or can supplement what you're doing, is something that we see a lot of young people do. The second one is exploring new or tangential topics, and that's related. I guess that's kind of relevant for those of you that may not know where you want to go. I think that's a really another really important I'd say tool when you can use online learning, because it's accessible. You can spend as much time as you want on it. And if you don't like something, you can just stop and try something else. And that really gives you so many opportunities that I'd say, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have. And so I think make use of that as much as you can. If you are not really convinced, or you don't yet know, or maybe you have a certain perception of what something is like, you can be assured, as you take some of that content and you really get a picture of whether this is something you really like or passionate about, or maybe you don't want to pursue. The third one is around filling gaps in your core digital skills. And those are, I'd say those aren't really the more kind of advanced or cutting edge skills. They can be as basic as, Excel skills, or, basic data analysis. I know these are the kinds of skills that you learn, most of you would learn at business school, but, for other students or in other faculties, think about some of these these core skills that everybody needs to be successful in their jobs. And that's really a great way to just develop those that you really maybe don't want to be spending time doing an elective in that, and you can do it online, and spend time doing something that's more exciting when you're at university. And the final one is that we also can't discount, that we were talking about earlier, is just focusing on yourself as an individual. There's a lot of, courses that you can take that can develop your interests further in other areas, passions that you have personally, maybe that are not, on a professional level, but also your physical and mental well-being. I think that's become particularly important during COVID, where we're facing a lot of pressure. And I think as, future graduates, that is something that I can only imagine, the intense pressure that you must be feeling because of how competitive the market is. But it also is really important that you're in a good state of mind, that you know how to balance your work and your studies and your personal life. And there's some really great, content and that you can enroll in that will just help you manage that balance. And I have to say, one of our most popular courses since COVID is a course offered by Yale University called The Science of Wellbeing. And that's really just one example of why it is really important, and to develop and kind of focus on yourself as well as where you're going professionally. And that's it for me. So I'm happy to spend the rest of the time, addressing any other questions or comments that you may have received, Amber.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And first of all, your comment about the confidence building, I find that's critical. And we had never even really discussed that before, but so true. And it's not just getting the names on the CV, but actually being able to articulately speak about that confidently. So thank you for mentioning that. Interestingly, about the well-being piece, a huge area of concern for our schools, the talent, of course, but also staff and faculty. And just coincidentally, one of the schools that we already have coming on board with learners on the Hired Coursera initiative, they've recently renamed their Career Center director as the director of the Career Center and Well-Being Director. So I find that to be commended. And so important what you mentioned there. Now, in terms of the partnership with Hired and Coursera, did you want to speak a bit more? I want to give them some details about how they can get in on this, and the talent, at least. Our schools have been hearing from us. We are actively engaged. For those of the talent out there wondering, how can I access the Hired EFMD Coursera partnership and initiative? Now, we have a number of schools that will be coming on board with their learners for specific programs or populations. So I'm sure you'll be hearing more from certain schools out there. At the same time, individual talent you will be able to access. This will all be, in both cases, through your school's gethired.global platform. So you will see there when you log into gethired.global, Coursera at the tab. Right now it says coming soon, but in the coming days you will see all the specifics about how you can access this fantastic partnership. And I know it's well received by our talent, because it was through the surveys that we did to our employers, to our career services and to the talent. And as I mentioned in the opening ceremony, an overwhelmingly positive response from the talent. More than 96% found these initiatives to be useful and a welcome complement to what they're doing in their institutions. So we do have a comment and a question that I wanted to ask here. First of all, Max mentions that he's noted that Salesforce skills are highly demanded if you want to work in sales. And that's a great point, Max, because so many of our institutions, they offer very robust and comprehensive academic curriculum, if you will, but it's the Salesforce, the Trello, the Power BI, the Google Analytics, where it's not necessarily falling under any of the core curriculum. I mean, in cases you might have certain electives that would incorporate this, but this is where the talent are seeking ways to upskill and train themselves in these areas. So very good point. I don't know if you wanted to say anything specific about Salesforce or training in sales, and as a matter of fact, Max, coincidentally, I had that question from one of my students in class last week, looking for a role in sales, yet at the same time, no sales experience on the CV. So this is certainly one way to get past that applicant tracking system scan when you're lacking the actual experience. Samar.
Yeah, actually, we've got a professional certificate that's offered, actually more than one. I think we've got about 3 at this point, offered by Salesforce on our platform that I would highly recommend if you're interested in that, especially if you don't have that work experience, because it really, combines the theory and the skills, but also some practical applications that you can then, illustrate to a potential employer, especially if they use Salesforce. So we've got a few pathways in there that I think are highly recommended if that's something you're considering. But also, we've got some other great content around sales as well. So I would always think about a combination. Really think about maybe look at a few job descriptions for sales roles. Think about which ones in particular you're interested in. Look at the jobs, the skills that they're reflecting, that they're expecting you to have when you apply for that job, and then work your way backwards and consider some of the Salesforce content, but also other great content that we have around sales.
And now another question here, and it's a great example because I want to hear how you can recommend to our talent to actually build what they're looking for. So Max says, I was offered an e-commerce lecturing, so to be a lecturer for a local university. What Coursera course, or I would add there, courses or guided projects, would you recommend? So for someone who gets this opportunity and really wants to ensure he or she or them are prepared for this, can you share, how would one begin? So we take this example with Max, e-commerce lectureship. How to get started?
So there's a few things that I would do. So obviously I would look at other people who teach e-commerce. What are some of the courses that you would be teaching related to e-commerce? Because there's obviously so many directions you could go with that. Think obviously about your skills. I'm sure they've hired you for a reason, so that you have specific skills related or expertise related to e-commerce. So you'll want to draw on that and maybe think about when you look at other, others who are teaching this, look at some of the other topics, and maybe if you're not particularly strong in those, you can find some courses that address these particular themes. They might be even modules within courses, so you don't have to take a full course for that. But I would also think about other things, especially if you haven't been lecturing before. So maybe think about leadership skills. Think about how to provide good feedback, and we've got a great course around that. To think, to help you manage those relationships that you're going to be having with your students and with colleagues. Maybe things around collaboration, communication, and we've got some really good content as well about managing in a remote environment, if that's if that is going to be the case. As well as if you are serious about creating your content in the future, you can think about some of our digital teaching skills that will help you create your own guided projects maybe in the future, create your own courses and design them effectively.
Excellent. Now we have another question from Sarah. For business development, what would you recommend, since I know it's a mixed skill set position? For example, data analysis?
Yes. So, again, I would say the same recommendation. I prefer not to tell you the answer, but really just to guide you in how you would go about it. So once again, look at some job descriptions for business development roles that, you're considering or you aspire, to have in the future, and look at what skill set they're requiring. But you're correct. I mean, you'll want a combination of a number of different things. And it doesn't really have to end with the job description, right? So we know that the core skills that everyone needs are around data and technology and business. So I'd say, data analysis, data science, if you are passionate about data and you're strong in data, maybe something around the tech skills, maybe some, just a general understanding of some of these emerging technologies, knowing, how artificial intelligence is impacting the world, Internet of Things, depends, in which space you'd be working in business development. But there's many skills around, kind of the digital space that would be valuable in this kind of role, depending on which direction you pursue. And don't forget the softer skills that I think are also going to be really important, because you're going to be interacting with a lot of people. So having those strong communication skills, presentation skills, perhaps even storytelling might be a good idea. I can't hear you, Amber.
Now from Chimisi, I recently got interested to digitalization and automation, but my specialization is marketing analytics. Do you have any recommendation that would be useful for me? And perhaps you're going to answer along the same lines, but maybe there's something different.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just focusing a lot on the emerging skills. If you're interested in automation, there's a lot in there. But I think, with marketing analytics, you're already probably developing those skills around how to use data to make, informed decisions, related to whatever field that you're thinking about. But you probably will want to explore further to understand that kind of the tech space a little bit better, so that you can start to, bring those two together, and maybe think about some of the courses around, innovation and how that's affecting the business environment and digital transformation.
Fantastic. Now, we did have some questions here about whether this live conference will be available for the students. So if any of you have missed any aspect of this will be posted to your school's gethired.global platform in the masterclasses section. You can rewatch this as you're devising your strategy for your next career move, thinking about how to fill in those skill gaps that you might have. I love Dr. Farah's suggestions when it comes to reverse engineering that job that you want. And also think again about those in-demand skills, those top 10 in-demand skills for 2025, which is less than 4 years away, everyone. So get working on those. And again, you will have access to this very, very soon through your school's gethired.global platform. Also, we have a special gift for winners of the 15-second challenge that we announced at the start during the opening ceremony. So be sure to tell us what employability, diversity, and inclusion mean to you and who you are in just 15 seconds. And that winner will be given complimentary access to Coursera. So that's a great way to get started on this. So Dr. Samar Farah, Skills Transformation Consultant at Coursera. It's been a great pleasure having you, and we are thrilled at Hired EFMD with our partnership and to be able to provide access to our talent all over the globe. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time, and really excited about our partnership. Thanks everyone for your time.
For a chance to have a live Express review. So looking forward to seeing you there, 4 to 5 p.m. CEST. And again, the most important thing here is the engagement with the recruiters. They are standing by at their stands, their virtual stands, from 9 to 5 p.m. CEST. So get out there, get engaging, give your pitches, ask those questions. Remember, ask for advice and you'll get a job. Ask for a job and you'll get advice. Thank you very much.